The training hall smelled like burnt ozone and pride. Kyle flexed his primary arms, feeling the chitin plates along his shoulders crack into perfect alignment. Around him, 23 other Threxian cadets performed their pre-class rituals, sharpening talons against designated stones, testing the flexibility of their natural armor. Vaughn, 2 platforms over, practiced his throat strikes against a gel dummy, each hit producing a satisfying thunk that echoed off the crystalline walls. Wait, not crystalline. The walls were made of compressed mineral composite. Kyle shook his head. Focus. Nira landed beside him with enough force to crack the platform beneath her feet. She grinned, mandibles clicking in amusement. Heard the rumor? Which one? Kyle straightened to his full height, nearly 8 feet of predatory evolution. The one about Instructor Vex Talon finally getting promoted, or the one about them shutting down the academy because nobody can afford the insurance anymore? Better. Nira's eyes, all 4 of them, gleamed with barely contained excitement. We're getting a human. The word hit the room like a concussion grenade. Every cadet froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even Vaughn stopped punching his dummy. A what? Someone from the back rows spoke up, probably Tix, always asking the obvious questions. A human! Nira practically bounced. From Earth! They're doing some kind of exchange program. Cultural Understanding Initiative or whatever the politicians are calling it these days. Kyle felt his secondary arms twitch involuntarily. Humans. The newest species to stumble into galactic society. Barely 2 generations past their first faster-than-light engine, and already they were everywhere. Loud, obnoxious, disturbingly cheerful about things that should terrify any rational being. And small, laughably, pathetically small. Attention! Vex Talon's voice cut through the rising chatter like a plasma blade through flesh. The instructor stood at the front of the hall, his armor polished to a mirror sheen, his 4 arms crossed in a display of absolute authority. I see the gossip network functions faster than your brains. Yes, we have been blessed with a human instructor as part of the Galactic Accord's diversity program. Blessed. The way Vex Talon said it made the word sound like a curse. This human will be teaching you about their species' combat techniques. Vex Talon's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement or disgust, hard to tell with him. I expect you all to treat our guest with the same respect you would show any instructor, which means you will not laugh, you will not mock, and you will absolutely not break them within the first 10 minutes of class. Break them? Vaughn whispered to Kale. Are they that fragile? They don't even have exoskeletons, Nira added, voice pitched low. I saw images. They're just soft. All the way through. Just skin and these internal bone structures that snap if you breathe on them wrong. Kale tried to imagine it. A species with no natural armor, no redundant organs, no proper claws or fangs. How did they even survive on their own planet? What kind of paradise world produced creatures so defenseless? The door at the far end of the hall opened. Every eye in the room turned. The human walked in. Kyle's first thought was that someone had sent them a juvenile by mistake. The creature stood maybe 5.5 feet tall, shorter than a Threxian adolescent. Its body was covered in some kind of artificial skin, dark green and form-fitting, with strange pouches and attachments hanging from a belt. No visible armor, no natural weapons. Its head was small, crowned with hair, pulled back into a tight configuration that exposed the vulnerable neck. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. It looked like someone had designed a species using only the minimum required parts. Class, Vex Talon gestured with his upper right arm. This is Lieutenant Ava of the Terran Defense Forces. She will be demonstrating human combat techniques today. Try to contain your enthusiasm. Eva moved to the center of the training floor. Her steps were quiet, controlled. She turned to face the class, and Kyle saw her eyes sweep across the assembled cadets with an expression he couldn't quite read. Good morning. Her voice was higher pitched than a Threxian's, but it carried well enough. I understand this is your advanced combat class, 4th-year cadets. You've been training since you were old enough to walk. You know 17 different ways to kill with your primary arms alone. You can crush stone with your bare hands. Your exoskeletons can deflect most small arms fire. She smiled. Kyle noticed she had small, flat teeth, herbivore teeth. I'm here to teach you why none of that matters. Vex Talon's mandibles spread in what was definitely amusement now. Perhaps we should start with a demonstration. Lieutenant Ava, if you would be so kind as to assist me. Eva nodded. She walked to where Vex Talon stood, stopping just within arm's reach of the instructor. A basic joint lock, Vex Talon announced to the class. Standard compliance technique, minimal force required, even effective on species with different anatomical structures. Watch carefully. He reached out with his upper right arm, moving slowly so the class could observe proper form. His taloned hand wrapped around Ava's wrist. His other arms positioned themselves for balance and control. The key is leverage, not strength, Vex Talon explained, beginning to apply pressure. You isolate the joint, apply force perpendicular to the natural range of motion, and the sound was like a dry branch snapping underfoot. Ava's wrist bent at an angle that made Kale's stomach clench. Vex Talon froze. His eyes went wide. All 4 of them. The human looked down at her wrist, hanging loose, bones clearly displaced beneath the skin. She looked back up at Vex Talon. She was still smiling. Well, Ava said, her voice perfectly calm, perfectly steady. That's unfortunate. The training hall erupted. Cadets shouted. Some moved toward the door, probably to get medical assistance. Nira grabbed Kyle's arm hard enough to dent his chitin. Vaughn just stood there, mouth hanging open, mandibles slack with shock. Vex Talon released Ava's arm like it had suddenly become radioactive. I barely... That was minimal pressure. The exact same technique I've used on thousands of different species, different tolerances. Ava rotated her broken wrist slightly, examining it with clinical detachment. No worries. Happens more often than you'd think. Someone want to grab the medical kit? Should be standard equipment in a combat training facility. Was she seriously asking for a first aid kit? Kyle stared. The human's wrist was broken, visibly, obviously broken, and she was standing there like someone had given her a minor inconvenience instead of a crippling injury. Tix ran over with the medical container, nearly dropping it twice in his panic. Ava took it with her good hand. Thanks. Appreciate it. Then she sat down, cross-legged on the training floor, and calmly began pulling medical supplies from the kit with her functioning hand. The broken one just dangled there, useless. Lieutenant, Vex Talon's voice had gone hollow. I need to call medical services, a proper doctor. This is a diplomatic incident. I've injured a guest instructor. The Academy Board will hear that you performed a standard training technique and discovered an important limitation in human physiology. Ava interrupted. She had found what she was looking for in the kit. some kind of foam injector and a flexible brace. Relax, instructor. I signed about 40 different waivers before they let me off the transport ship. This is a combat academy. Injuries happen. She looked up at the class. 24 Threxian warriors, each one capable of tearing a security door off its hinges, stared back at her in complete silence. Ava's smile widened. Now then, she said, positioning the injector against her broken wrist. Let me tell you about pain tolerance and why humans are really, really good at it. She pressed the trigger, and that's when Kale realized they had made a terrible mistake assuming humans were prey. The foam injector hissed. Ava didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even blink. The compound spread beneath her skin, visible as a faint blue glow through the pale tissue. Kyle watched, transfixed, as the human used her good hand to grip her broken wrist. Then she twisted it. The bones ground together with a sound that made half the class look away. Nira actually gagged, a high-pitched wheeze escaping her mandibles, but Ava just kept working, manipulating the broken joint with the kind of casual efficiency someone might use to fix a malfunctioning tool. Humans evolved on Earth, she said, her voice steady despite what she was doing to herself. Class 12 Death World by galactic standards. Everything there wanted to kill us. The predators, the weather, the plants. Even the bacteria fought back. She pulled the flexible brace from the kit, began wrapping it around her wrist with practiced motions, one-handed, while the injured limb was still healing. We didn't have armor, didn't have claws or fangs worth mentioning, couldn't outrun most predators, couldn't outfight them either. Ava tightened the brace, used her teeth to secure the fastening. So we learned to outlast them instead. Vex Talon had gone very still. His combat posture had shifted, subtle. But Kale noticed. The instructor was no longer standing like someone addressing an inferior. He was standing like someone assessing a potential threat. Persistence hunting, Eva continued. She flexed her newly braced wrist, testing the stability. Kyle saw her jaw tighten, just slightly, the first sign of actual discomfort she'd shown. We'd chase prey for hours, days sometimes. They were faster, stronger, but they couldn't sweat like we could. Couldn't regulate temperature as efficiently, so we'd just keep coming, keep chasing, until they collapsed from exhaustion. She stood up, smoothly, no sign of weakness. Pain is just information, Eva said. My wrist is broken. I know that. My brain knows that. But the information doesn't have to stop me from functioning. Humans can operate through injuries that would incapacitate most species. We've documented soldiers who continued fighting with limbs severed, athletes who finished competitions with compound fractures, parents who lifted vehicles off trapped children despite torn muscles and shattered bones. Vaughn made a noise, something between awe and horror. Instructor Vex Talon. Eva turned to face him fully. Would you like to continue the demonstration? The training hall could have doubled as a tomb. That's how quiet it got. Vex Talon's mandibles spread. Pride warred with caution across his features. You're injured. I have one functional arm, Eva agreed. You have 4, plus natural armor, plus claws, plus about 300 pounds of mass advantage, plus home terrain familiarity. She tilted her head. Seems fair to me. Lieutenant, I do think, Eva interrupted. I think your students just watched you accidentally break their instructor. I think they're now wondering if humans are too fragile to belong in combat training. I think your reputation as an educator just took a serious hit. She smiled again. that same predator's smile. And I think you'd really like a chance to prove that what just happened was a fluke, an accident, not a sign that maybe, just maybe, you underestimated what you were dealing with. Kyle felt his breathing quicken. Around him, the other cadets had gone absolutely rigid. Vex Talon's eyes narrowed, all four of them. "One round," he said quietly. "Standard sparring rules, first submission or incapacitation." "Perfect." Eva rolled her shoulders, her neck, the movements were loose, relaxed. "But first, let me teach you something about human anatomy, specifically the parts you absolutely don't want to hit if you're trying to control someone." She pointed to her throat. "Trachea. Crush this, we suffocate." Her temple. "Temporal bone. Thin here. Strike hard enough, brain damage." Her knee. "Lateral movement. We're not designed for it. Easy to dislocate." The list went on, each vulnerability casually mentioned, each weakness openly advertised. When she finished, Nira leaned close to Kyle. Why is she telling him how to hurt her? Kyle didn't have an answer, but he was starting to suspect they were about to get one. Vex Talon circled left. Eva didn't move. She stood in the center of the training floor, weight balanced, injured arm held close to her body. Her eyes tracked the instructor with absolute focus. "Begin!" Tix shouted from the sidelines. Someone had to officiate. Vex Talon lunged, fast, faster than Kale had ever seen the instructor move in demonstration before. All four arms extended, reaching for grip points, preparing to overwhelm through sheer limb advantage. Eva dropped, not backward, not to the side, straight down, below the reaching arms, and then forward, inside Vex Talon's guard. Her good hand shot out, fingers extended, and struck something beneath the instructor's primary shoulder joint. Vex Talon's right arms went limp. "Brachial plexus nerve cluster," Eva said, already moving. "You have them too. Just slightly different location than ours." The instructor roared. His functioning arms swung in brutal arcs. Each strike carried enough force to crack bone, to pulverize flesh. Eva wasn't where the strikes landed. She flowed around them, movements minimal, efficient. No wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. She struck again. Vex Talon's left knee buckled. "Perineal nerve," Eva explained, her voice never rising above instructional calm. "Controls leg extension. Hit it right. Temporary paralysis." Kyle couldn't breathe. Around him, the entire class had pressed forward, watching in horrified fascination. This wasn't a fight. This was a lecture. A brutal, terrifying lecture delivered through violence. Vex Talon adapted. He stopped trying to grab her, started using his mass instead. He charged, lowering his center of gravity, attempting to simply bull through the smaller opponent. Eva sidestepped. Her hand came up, palm open, and struck the instructor's facial ridge just below his primary eyes. The angle was perfect. The force translated directly through the bone structure. Vex Talon stumbled. His vision had to be blurred, possibly doubled. "Orbital bone strike," Eva said. "Doesn't matter how thick your skull plating is. The socket underneath is still vulnerable. Physics is physics." The instructor was breathing hard now. 3 of his 4 arms were functioning again, nerves recovering, but his movements had become cautious, defensive. Eva pressed forward. She was hunting now. Kyle saw it. The shift in her posture, the way she angled her body. She moved like something stalking prey through tall grass. Patient, inevitable. Vex Talon swung. A desperation move. Too wide, too committed. Eva ducked under it, stepped inside, and drove her elbow into the exposed gap where the instructor's neck met his shoulder. right where the auxiliary respiratory valve was located, the one Threxians used during high-exertion activities. Vex Talon choked. His breathing turned ragged. "You're stronger than me," Eva said. She wasn't even winded. "Faster too, probably, over short distances. Better armored, better armed naturally. You're the superior physical specimen by every measurable standard." She struck again. A hammer fist to the instructor's lower back, right where the nerve cluster controlled tail movement. Vex Talon dropped to one knee. "But I know exactly where to hurt you," Eva continued. "And I don't need to be stronger. I just need to be accurate." The instructor tried to rise. Eva's leg came up, heel striking the inside of his extended elbow, the joint hyperextended with a wet popping sound. Vex Talon collapsed fully. Eva stood over him, not gloating, not celebrating, just waiting. "Yield," Vex Talon gasped. "I yield." Eva stepped back immediately. She looked at the class. 24 Threxian warriors stared back. Nobody was laughing now. Nobody was smiling. "Humans don't win fights by being tougher," Eva said. "We win by being meaner, by knowing that when something bigger and stronger wants to hurt us, we hurt them back worse. We study, we learn, we find the weaknesses." She paused. "And we never, ever stop coming." Vex Talon groaned from the floor. Eva reached down with her good hand, offering assistance. The instructor stared at it. Then, slowly, he took it. She helped him stand, and then she twisted. The movement was so fast that Kale almost missed it. One moment, Eva was helping Vex Talon to his feet. The next, she had pivoted, used his own rising momentum against him, and applied a twisting pressure to his neck that resulted in a sound like breaking ceramics. Vex Talon hit the ground, hard. His body convulsed once, then went absolutely still except for shallow, panicked breathing. His eyes were wide, all four of them, but nothing else moved. Not his arms, not his legs, not even his mandibles. The training hall exploded into chaos. Cadets rushed forward. Someone was screaming for medical assistance. Nira grabbed Kyle's arm again, harder this time, talons actually drawing fluid from his chitin. Vaughn had gone pale, his natural coloring fading to a sickly gray. Eva stood over the fallen instructor, perfectly calm, hands at her sides. "Stop!" Her voice cut through the panic like a blade. Not loud, just absolutely commanding. "Everyone stop moving right now." The authority in those words froze the entire class mid-motion. "Instructor Vex Talon is fine," Eva said. She knelt beside him, checking his pulse points with professional efficiency. "His neck is broken, yes. But Threxian spinal architecture has redundant nerve pathways. The primary column is compromised. The secondary and tertiary are intact. He can breathe. His heart is beating. He's conscious and aware." She looked up at the horrified faces surrounding her. "He's also in extraordinary pain and will be unable to move for approximately 6 to 8 hours while his nervous system reroutes around the damage. But he will recover. Fully. Within 3 days, probably." Kyle found his voice. You knew that? You knew breaking his neck wouldn't kill him?" "Of course I knew that." Eva stood, brushing dust from her uniform. "I've been studying Threxian anatomy for 6 months preparing for this assignment. I know your physiology better than most of your own doctors. Every pressure point, every nerve cluster, every structural weakness in your exoskeleton, every organ placement, every redundant system you have, and every vital point you don't." She gestured at Vex Talon, still paralyzed on the floor. "I knew exactly what would happen when I applied that technique. just like I knew exactly what would happen when Instructor Vex Talon applied minimal Threxian force to my very breakable human wrist. The implication hit Kale like a physical blow. You let him break it. I allowed a teaching opportunity to develop, Eva corrected. Human wrists are fragile. That's not a secret. It's in every xenobiology database in the galaxy. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it viscerally are very different things. Medical personnel finally arrived, rushing in with grav stretchers and diagnostic equipment. Eva waved them over to Vex Talon, then turned back to the class. Sit, she ordered. All of you. Now. They sat. Every single cadet dropped to the floor without question. Even Vaughn, who never followed orders without at least token resistance. Ava waited until the medical team had loaded Vex Talon onto a stretcher and moved him out of the training hall. The instructor's eyes followed her the entire time. Kyle saw something in that gaze. Respect, fear, maybe both. When the doors closed, Ava began speaking. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Do you know what that means? Silence. It means our planet is actively hostile to life. The weather can kill you in minutes. Temperature swings of 60 degrees within hours. Storms that flatten entire forests. Earthquakes. Volcanoes. Tsunamis. Our world is geologically active in ways that would make most species evacuate the planet and call it a loss. She started pacing. Slow, measured steps. The predators are worse. We evolved alongside creatures that made us prey. Big cats that could crush our skulls with one bite. Pack hunters that would chase us for miles. Reptiles that could swallow us whole. Bears that weighed half a ton and could run faster than our top sprinters. We were food for thousands of other species. Nira raised a hand tentatively. But you survived. We survived, Ava agreed. Not because we were strong, because we were stubborn, because we refused to die. Because when a predator took down one of us, the rest would track that predator for days and kill it with rocks and pointed sticks. We turned being prey into being the most dangerous prey anything had ever encountered. She stopped pacing, faced the class directly. Humans are persistence hunters, endurance predators. We don't give up, ever. There's a saying on Earth, old military wisdom. You know what it is? Nobody answered. The enemy gets a vote, Eva said. No matter how strong you are, how well armored, how perfectly trained, the enemy gets to decide how they're going to respond. And humans? We don't respond by running away. We don't respond by submitting. We respond by learning everything about you we possibly can, finding your weaknesses, and then exploiting those weaknesses until you stop being a threat. Kale felt something cold settle in his stomach. That's terrifying. Yes, Eva said simply. It is. And it's why humanity went from stone tools to interstellar travel in roughly 10,000 years. It's why we survived ice ages, plague outbreaks, natural disasters, and 3 separate near-extinction events. It's why when we finally built ships and reached the stars, we didn't arrive begging for protection. We arrived ready to defend ourselves against anything the galaxy could throw at us. She held up her braced wrist. This will heal in 6 weeks, 8 if I'm unlucky. During that time, I'm operating at partial capacity, but I can still fight, still teach, still function. Because humans don't have the luxury of shutting down when we're injured. Our ancestors hunted with broken bones, gave birth in caves while predators circled outside, crossed continents with infected wounds and empty stomachs. Eva's expression softened, just slightly. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this so you understand what you're dealing with. Humans are part of the galactic community now. We're your allies, your trading partners, your neighbors. But we're also survivors of a world that tried very, very hard to kill us for millions of years. That shapes a species, changes how they think, how they fight, how they approach problems. Vaughn spoke up. What happens now? With Instructor Vex Talon? He'll recover, Eva said, and hopefully he learned the same lesson you all did today. Don't judge a species by appearance. Don't assume weakness means helplessness, and absolutely don't underestimate something just because it's smaller than you. She checked a device on her wrist, the functional one. We have 10 minutes until the class period ends. Anyone have questions? Kyle's hand went up before he could stop himself. Did you really sign waivers? Or was that a lie to make Instructor Vex Talon feel better? Eva smiled, that predator smile again. I signed waivers, 47 of them actually, covering everything from accidental injury to intentional harm to unlikely but possible death. The Galactic Accord is very thorough about liability documentation. And you signed them anyway? Nira asked. Of course, Eva said. Because the best way to teach someone about human capabilities is to let them experience those capabilities firsthand. Words are cheap. Demonstrations are memorable. She walked toward the exit, then paused, looking back over her shoulder. Tomorrow, same time, we'll be covering human combat doctrine. Specifically, why humans prefer ranged weapons, what we call combined arms tactics, and why individual physical superiority matters less than you think in modern warfare. Attendance is mandatory. Bring questions. Bring skepticism. Bring whatever assumptions you have left about humans being weak. The door opened. Eva stepped through. Her final words drifted back into the training hall. And maybe bring better medical supplies. Tomorrow, I'll be showing you what humans can do when we're actually trying to hurt someone. The door closed. 24 Threxian warriors sat in absolute silence. Finally, Vaughn spoke. I think we made a huge mistake. What mistake? Kyle asked. Inviting them to join the galaxy, Vaughn said quietly. We should have left Earth alone. Should have quarantined that entire system. Because now they're out here with us. Nira's mandibles clicked nervously. They're allies, partners. For now, Vaughn said. But what happens if that changes? What happens when something bigger and scarier than humans shows up and threatens them? Kyle understood. The cold feeling in his stomach intensified. They'll study it, he said slowly. Learn everything about it. Find its weaknesses. And then they'll kill it, Vaughn finished. No matter how long it takes. No matter what it costs them. Outside, the afternoon sun was setting over Threxia Prime. Somewhere in the medical facility, Instructor Vex Talon lay paralyzed, contemplating his choices. And tomorrow, Lieutenant Ava would return to teach them more about humanity. Coyle wasn't sure he wanted to learn, but he knew with absolute certainty that he needed to. Because humans were here now. Part of the galaxy. Part of their future. And ignoring them wouldn't make them go away. Nothing made humans go away. That was the entire point.